Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller. My co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. We got another new winner. Chase Elliott in victory lane at EchoPark Speedway, formerly known as Atlanta. Takes the win from Brad Keselowski, who would have been another first-time winner on the season. Alex Bowman up there, finishes third. Tyler Reddick, Eric Jones inside the top five. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Zane Smith, Ty Dillon, Chris Buescher, Carson Hocevar, rounding out the top 10. And overall, an exciting race, fun race, definitely to watch there at the end. We had passing, we had guys fighting for the lead. Overall, pretty good racing for a pseudo speedway type of race. But Chase Elliott in victory lane once again. He was one of the first winners there at Atlanta once they repaved and reconfigured the track. And I will admit, I was wrong on this, because when they redid Atlanta, I remember my first take was they ruined Atlanta. We've had some of the best finishes, and the racing here this past weekend at the end was phenomenal. 91% yes vote on Jeff Gluck's poll. I think that's a little inflated just because of recent races, but does not discount the fact that this was good racing. It was a good race. Unfortunately, it was on Saturday night, so they didn't get the ratings that it probably deserved. But we have another new winner. We have a good race. Nick, what was your takeaways from EchoPark?
It was a very good race. My biggest issue is I don't want us to have this become the norm, convert more tracks to this style of racing because this was a good race. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about the implications from the fact that it was a good race. Because, yes, it was exciting, it was competitive, but it's just not the style of racing I like. I don't enjoy the style of racing. I don't think it's my favorite style of racing. I enjoyed the race, don't get me wrong. I thought I was, again, exciting, good, competitive, a lot of drama. You didn't know who was going to win until the very end. But
we don't need it every week.
Yeah, we don't need it every week. And I don't think it was pre-tandem era style drafting either. It's so much hard. Track position still means so much more at Atlanta than it did back then. So I think this is, to me, it looked more like 90s, mid-late 90s style Talladega and Daytona a little bit, but even then, not that much. I think it's just its own unique style of racing. I don't think we can actually say it's like, pre-tandem Daytona and Talladega from like the mid 2000s. It's not like that. It's just absolutely not. The runs on those tracks were bigger. The pushing mattered more. It's not that it didn't matter here, but like this was more about positioning and side drafting, and you could make moves on your own, which you could back in that era too with Daytona and Talladega, but here it was more individual, which is good. I think that's a good thing, but it's just not my favorite style of racing. I enjoyed it. Two Atlanta races of this style of racing is more than enough.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, you were able to race solo, but the pass at the end was because Bowman did not then push Keselowski after he got Chase Elliott by. Like, that was pure teammate. Mm-hmm. And, as much as people like to shit on Alex Bowman, he was a great teammate right there. Not letting Chase Elliott win, but not pushing Keselowski to the
Once he realized he didn't have a chance to win himself, he wasn't going to help Keselowski beat his teammate.
Exactly. And that's exactly what Keselowski came on the radio and said at the end of the race. He's like, I just needed a teammate. I needed someone there at the end to get me back past Chase. But yeah, another strong race for Keselowski in that 6 team that just falls a little short and doesn't quite get into victory lane. But like I said, we got a new winner. As far as like the racing, yeah, I'm with you. Like 2 races at Atlanta is good enough. But I'll say this, and one of the points that Denny Hamlin made on his podcast was that he almost had like FOMO sitting there watching it after getting wrecked out, because it reminded him of old school drafting, which is where he was at his best, where you could actually make moves and stuff. And one argument I saw online this week, not an argument, but they wished, and I agree with this, I wish the racing at Daytona and Talladega was like this. I almost wish the Daytona 500 was at Atlanta now, based on what we've seen at this track. Like, I understand Daytona has the history, has all that, but as far as the racing right now, I wish that this was the Daytona 500. I think it would be even better.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Just drafting style racing right now is just garbage in general, I think. So that wouldn't excite me if Atlanta was the Daytona 500. I wouldn't be like, wow, the Daytona 500. It's the lore of Daytona, the tradition and all that. I honestly don't care what style of racing Daytona is. It's Daytona. And yeah, I don't know. I feel different about that. I'm not as high as everybody else was on that Atlanta race. Again, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I just worry about the implications of it. I still don't think it's the best style of racing. And there's still a little too much, dependency on positioning and teammates, as you said, right? Like Keselowski had no shot there at the end. And so, it's definitely a track where the best car is not always going to win. In this case, arguably Elliott did have the best car and he won, but it's certainly more so than your other traditional ovals, a track that's going to produce some upset winners more often than not. That's fine. We need upset winners. It's good for the sport. I don't know. I just don't enjoy the 1.5 mile drafting. Which is funny because last year after that 3-wide finish in Atlanta, I was like, dude, that was so exciting. That was awesome. One of the best races of the next gen era. I thought this racing was about the same as that one. And I think night racing at Atlanta is what does this. During the day, it's not as good. During the day, you cannot form those runs. It's harder to race in this style of racing during the day. But the night racing in Atlanta is much better. So I will say if we keep doing Atlanta, we need to have the races be at night because they're better.
Hamlin also mentioned that having less cars on the track also helped with the racing because it allowed more room for people to actually move around, get runs and stuff like that. So that could also be a factor as well. But yeah, that huge, how many cars were in that first wreck or that middle wreck, 23 or something, like, just a ridiculous amount there. It was fun though, watching and listening to the in-car cameras of all the people in that wreck. It was cool getting all those perspectives and seeing that. I enjoyed that. So, but yeah, like I said, we got another new winner. And I think we've talked about this before, probably on the season opener, but between 2 races at Talladega, 2 races at Daytona, 2 races at Atlanta, do we have too much super speedway style, drafting style races? And if they're talking about potentially transforming another 1.5 miles to this, then we're looking at 8, probably 7 or 8 races of a 36 race schedule that are essentially toss-ups.
Yeah, that would be too much, honestly. And then we have 5 or 6 road courses a year, which is another, I wouldn't say a wild card, but definitely produces winners that, are potentially sometimes not championship contenders. SVG is not a championship contender, right? And so all of a sudden we start diluting the playoffs even more if we get enough upset winners. It definitely starts to dilute the playoffs. Imagine we had some stick and ball sport where the 28th place team was able to get in through winning a random game or something. If you win on this date, you get into the playoffs. It starts to dilute the playoffs even more. So not only does it produce, a style of racing that isn't classic racing where the fastest cars are supposed to just get out and go and, we hate the 5-second, the 10-second wins, but if the car is that much faster than everybody else, they should be winning by 5 or 10 seconds. And that's, to me, the more pure form of racing. Now, don't get me wrong. I love drafting racing. I always have. But in this next gen car, to me, it's not the best style of racing. I honestly, I really liked the Gen 6 car, which is post-tandem, where you could get these huge runs and, you could really work the draft to just get monstrous runs. And I thought that was cool because that allowed you to do something to work your way through the field. And you didn't always have to rely on a push to do that. If you had the cars in front of you and you're able to get a huge run, that is a cool thing. That lets you go from 12th to 1st without, having to have a push. So I thought that was great because that was where you could actually work the draft. So my favorite style of racing was, that Gen 6 era where it was still restrictor plates before it became tapered spacers. And you were just getting these monstrous runs. And I thought it was really, really exciting style of racing. It produced some crazy crashes though, which, I know people weren't a fan of. We had some pretty gnarly wrecks, but to me, that was like really good style of super speedway racing. So I still think work needs to be done on Daytona and Talladega. Now we've got the whole fuel saving thing, right? That was also the era where they hadn't quite figured out the fuel saving stuff. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a single lug car, so the tires don't really matter. And, it's just a whole bunch of stuff where back in the day, you probably still didn't have this fuel stuff. And now we have the fuel stuff at Daytona and Talladega, which makes it worse. There was a few bad races in that era. Don't get me wrong. I think it was like the 2018 Daytona 500 was basically a single line around the top, but that didn't always happen. Yeah.
Now it's almost expected that Daytona and Talladega are just going to be boring.
Yeah.
It's
going to look cool because they're going to be 4 wide, but it's not actually doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, though, 12th different winner this year now through 18 races. Only 3 drivers have more than 1 win. So we are potentially looking at, or we are one step closer to getting, 17 different winners before these playoffs start. Actually, there's still a chance, right? Yeah. We still have 8 races. Yeah. Got some road course races coming up, so we could definitely do that. Other news coming out this week after Atlanta a little bit. I wouldn't say I was super surprised by this, but I was kind of surprised by it. Like, Daniel Suarez will not return to Trackhouse Racing after this season. They are mutually agreeing to part ways, whether that's the actual part of it or not. Obviously, his performance this year is nowhere near his teammates or, SVG is SVG, but he's got that win. Suarez is 29th in points, but he will not be racing for Trackhouse next year. Were you surprised by that at all?
No, I mean, the writing was on the wall when Pitbull left, I think this has been writing on the wall for a long time. The bigger question is where Daniel Suarez is going to end up. I see things like the 7 car. That's not happening. Justin Haley's in a multi-year contract there. Daniel Suarez is not going to the 7 car unless for some reason they buy out Haley's contract, but that's going to be an expensive buyout just to put another driver in the car and have to pay him, even though he would bring sponsorship and stuff. Spire doesn't necessarily need extra sponsorship. They already have the Gamebridge deal, etc. So it doesn't make sense financially for Daniel Suarez to go to the 7 car. So, Justin Haley's performance has been terrible, arguably just as bad relative to his teammates as Daniel Suarez is to Ross Chastain. So it's not really an upgrade, if you will, to put Suarez in that car. I do think Suarez is a better driver than Haley, but not a massive ton, not enough to warrant kicking out Haley and buying out his contract just to go to Suarez. So, I think the bigger question is where does Suarez end up? And I know a lot of the talk right now is around that 88 car at Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, which would just be essentially a seat swap with Connor Zilisch, who everybody expects to be the 3rd Trackhouse car next year.
Yeah, I've seen that. And then I saw some random, I don't even think it was anything legitimate at all, but the potential for Suarez to land at that 10 car that Ty Dillon's currently in. But I think most likely we're looking at Suarez going back down to Xfinity, which honestly I think that's where he belonged. Like if you know me, I've never thought that Daniel Suarez is talented. I've never thought he deserved a Cup ride, especially the top rides that he's gotten. So I think that'll be good for him. I think overall, if he can go and end his career there, it'll be a good thing in the grand scheme of things. And then, as you said, it gets Zillish up and gets him a spot.
Circa just dropped hot dog eating contest totals, so I'm intrigued by that. So I just recorded my
Joey Chestnut's back.
Yeah, I have a 20-minute interview with him that my colleague and I did that I tweeted out earlier today, and also we just
did that drop already?
Yeah, that was out yesterday, but we also recorded today. So we that Joey Chestnut thing we recorded a month ago, but aired the whole podcast yesterday. But I tweeted it out today, and then today we recorded the Nathan's Hot Dog episode. And so that episode just got released, but I haven't tweeted it out yet. So after this podcast, I'll be tweeting that out. But I've already made my hot dog bets, and then hopped on Twitter and just saw that Circa posted their hot dog eating totals. So that distracted me for a moment there.
But before we move on, you got anything else from Atlanta?
No, not really. Like you said, the big news was Suarez coming out of Atlanta. Would have been wild if he had won Atlanta, like he had done before, and then they dropped that news.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a victim of one of the big ones there, or the big one, I should say. DNF in 34th. Yep. Lap 69, the big one. So nothing else from Atlanta. I think it was notable that Carson Hocevar got in an early wreck and got his lap back, ended up finishing 10th. That is,
for a while there, I thought he was going to challenge for the win at the end.
I didn't think so. His car, I knew, was kind of not perfect after that. So I didn't really think he was going to factor into the win much. But yeah, that's really about it. Eric Jones finished 5th. I think that's pretty notable. That gets him into an interesting spot in the points. Can you imagine if Eric Jones didn't have that Martinsville DQ, what that would do to this points race, right? Because he got DQ'd at Martinsville. He finished 38th. But I believe he crossed the line. What was it? I forget what, but yeah, he lost a good chunk of points there. So we'll have to see what that was. I don't know. Where does it say?
24th.
Yeah, 24th
and
versus 30
stage points.
Yeah. So 24th finisher gets 13 points. So that's 13 plus 6, 19, and he got 1. So an 18-point difference. I put Eric Jones
7 points below the cut line.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So
I think that's a testament to how he's kind of had a quiet season, but he's right there in the playoff hunt.
6 straight races, well. 6 straight races of 17th or better. Then Kansas DNF'd, but at Texas he finished 5th, and then Talladega before that he finished 18th. So of the last 9 races, he's had 8 that have been 18th or better in the top half of the field.
Yeah, really solid runs out of not only him, but also his teammate, John Hunter Nemechek, who, by the way, he ended up with the most fastest laps and the fastest lap at Atlanta. Even after getting in that wreck, he was grabbing fastest laps at Atlanta. Just something noteworthy there. I know a lot of us were rooting for Stenhouse on that 65-1 for most fastest laps, but it ended up being, I think Stenhouse ended up with 12 and Nemechek ended up with 14. So close. Always fun when you have those little things to root for during the race.
I believe we're still without a Ford recording the fastest lap of the race this season.
I think you're right.
So
unless Blaney did it at
he didn't
Homestead, but I think that was Larson.
No, it was at Homestead way back. No, Homestead was Bubba Wallace with the fastest lap.
Okay. Huh. That's weird. Especially with the horsepower they have in qualifying, you know?
Yep. But that doesn't matter in a drafting race. And then, I don't think they necessarily show the same horsepower in standard ovals for qualifying.
Right. So in addition to getting a new winner at Atlanta, before we get to the playoff or the point standings, playoff standings, 0 in-season challenge brackets are still perfect after a bunch of round one upsets. You and I called it. Denny Hamlin would be out early in this contest. There was the potential there. Hamlin's out. Ty Dillon advanced. Keselowski advanced. Bowman and Bubba Wallace, the next two. John Hunter Nemechek versus Chase Elliott. Eric Jones, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It looks like a pretty easy path for Chase Elliott to get there. He might run into Bowman, or he'll probably run into Bowman, but it looks like a pretty easy path for Chase Elliott. He's the favorite. Him and Reddick are the favorite now, according to sports books, to win this thing. Gregson versus Priest. Hocevar versus Reddick, which could be an interesting matchup there at Chicago Street Course this week. Another interesting matchup, Allmendinger versus Gibbs. And then we got Fords, Zane Smith, and Chris Buescher in that bottom right quadrant. So have you looked at any of the betting odds? For this, anything worth out there?
I haven't bet anything as far as like current odds, but this is going to lead into my whine about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's throw that in there now.
Yeah, let's throw that in there. So last week I took Suarez 70-1. Obviously that went down the drain, hoping to cash out. But you also mentioned Ty Gibbs, and I said he was the other one I was thinking of. Mm-hmm. So I bet him 50-1. So my whine about it is, why the fuck is FanDuel not giving me a damn cash out offer now? Because he's 6-1 there, or something, 6-1 at some other books. Why is FanDuel not giving me a cash out offer now? They had cash out offer last week before the race started. I could cash it out for less than I had put in, right? Yeah. But now that he's whatever it is to 1 at most places, why is FanDuel not giving me a cash out offer? I would probably take it.
So I
kind of ridiculous.
I don't think they've posted lines yet, so they won't calculate the cash out until they post their line.
Post your damn lines.
Yeah, they're getting slow. Like even this week so far, they only have top 3, top 5. They don't have any top 10s up.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I want to cash out my Ty Gibbs. I want to cash it out because I don't trust the fucker.
Yeah. Well, and this is, but
it also depends on what the offer is, right?
Too.
If they don't give me a good offer, I'll just keep letting it ride because these next 2 tracks are good for him, especially I think Chicago Street Course.
Yep.
So, but just annoyed that I don't have a cash out offer yet.
Hopefully that comes soon.
It's very short whine about it, but that's my whine about it.
Yeah. My whine about it. Man, I don't even really have one.
I'll give you a second line about it if you want.
Mine was going to be people that loved the racing at Atlanta on Sunday, but absolutely hated tandem racing. Because that doesn't make sense to me because they're not the same, but that was very similar in my eyes. That was going to be my.
I didn't think that was anything like tandem racing because tandem racing was 2 cars bumper to bumper locked, passing 2 other cars bumper to bumper locked, and that's not what we saw at Atlanta.
But just the end with Bowman pushing Elliott was just it
that wasn't
gave me
anything
flashbacks
like
to
tandem.
Yeah. It wasn't exactly like tandem racing, but it gave me reminder of tandem racing.
I completely disagree. I didn't even think of tandem racing when I saw it.
I did. That's the first thing I thought of.
Well, I guess I'm the subject of your whine about.
But no, it's not you. It's not you because no. Don't take it like that. But it's probably just because I long so much for tandem racing again. Because as you know,
I hated tandem racing.
I was a big proponent of it.
Absolutely the worst style of super speedway racing I've ever seen. Even worse than the 4-wide fuel save.
But so like I said, zero perfect brackets left, which I don't think anybody's too surprised on that.
That's my backup point about it, though.
Does that ruin the excitement of this whole thing?
Yeah, because look at this. Of the 16 first-round matchups, only 4 of them have both drivers left on the lead lap.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Towards the end of the race there. So only 25% of the matchups even potentially could have had drama, and some of them didn't because, you had a wounded car on the lead lap against a fine car kind of thing. That's like, and I tweeted this out, that's like starting March Madness with 75% of the games being 1 versus 16 seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody would want that first week set of games to be like that. I mean, and it's a product of putting a tournament with a race that's half the time completely random. And we got the completely random Atlanta this time.
Right.
So it's a terrible way to start a tournament. It doesn't take any skill, essentially. Maybe once the field got thinned out, like Denny Hamlin said, but by and large, that was horrible as far as excitement of a tournament, because all the matchups were decided until, I should say 75% of the matchups were decided, even potentially more, given we had wounded car versus non-wounded car in the lead lap scenario. It's just not a good way to have a kickoff to a tournament. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. And even if the results would have been better as far as like people advancing and making it a little more exciting, it's still the fact of the matter that the first race was Atlanta, which, like you said, unpredictable. And then to me, it's 2 road courses after that. Like, this favors certain guys so much. I don't like that aspect of it.
Completely agree.
Like, I like that it ends at Dover and then Indy, but like hitting Atlanta and then 2 road courses just never sat well with me. And now, like I said, like, as far as I'm concerned, Chase Elliott has a cakewalk into the final. I think Bowman will give him a shot at Dover, but that's if Bowman makes it there. It's so I don't like that aspect of it where it also creates that. So but same with Reddick, like if Reddick gets by Hocevar this week, he's easily gonna be better than Preece. Well, probably better than Preece at Sonoma. Like, so that's an easy win for Reddick there, but he will. And then by the time the next race, Dover, we're out of the road courses, and then the bottom right quadrant, those are all the road course ringers in there, so they won't.
I don't think Chase Elliott has a complete cakewalk. Chicago street course, last year he finished 21st, and there was some rain in that, and there's potentially rain in the forecast this time for Chicago. And John Hunter Nemechek just put up a pretty strong result at Mexico City, a 6th place result there. So
I forgot about that.
It is not a foregone conclusion. And John Hunter Nemechek finished 2nd in the Xfinity race at Chicago in its inaugural season. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Chase Elliott beats John Hunter Nemechek, just given the circumstances. Especially now that Chase Elliott has a win in the bag. What he could do if he's running towards the front is grab that stage point, because it's very likely SVG grabs the 5 win points, and so Chase Elliott could be doing almost the suboptimal strategy to just grab a playoff point to get the guaranteed playoff point, because you can guarantee 1 if you're leading or near the lead in SVG pits to flip the stages kind of thing. So we know John Hunter Nemechek doesn't have a win. He's going to be doing whatever he can to get the win. So I think there's not a total foregone conclusion here that Chase Elliott is a winner in this matchup here.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Nemechek at Mexico City. I'm so used to just like not thinking much about John Hunter Nemechek that I forget the places where he might actually be decent at. So, yeah, that would definitely be an upset. And like last week, I think I bet 5 or 6 head-to-heads where I just bet the underdog because it was Atlanta, and I lost 2 of them and won 4 of them, I think. So it was good. It was a good weekend. I don't see that being the strategy this week, but like you said, rain could be in the forecast again for Chicago. We've seen this race get wild before. So yeah, I mean, if we're going to have an unpredictable road course, it's Chicago street course.
Yep, absolutely. Remember, John Hunter Nemechek has a Truck Series win on a road course. He has been pretty good at the flat road courses, if you will, over his career through the different series. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Chase Elliott wins this weekend in that matchup. Certainly a heavy favorite, right? 75+%, but maybe not even 75%, maybe like, 2/3 of the time he wins, but that means John Hunter Nemechek is live. But you're right. The in-season tournament definitely favors certain drivers here. And I think it's just kind of, the tournament feels a little ruined just because we started with a race that was complete and total randomness. You watch the NCAA tournament after the first round, right? There's 32 games in the first round. They're very often 98% of the years, I would say, there's at least one person that has a perfect bracket through the first round, if not several people. Yeah, and then potentially the first 2 rounds, but also just, I mean, every year that you see like 18 people still have a perfect bracket after the first 32 games, or 150 people, right? Like, you can't have that when you have a completely random race, and this was essentially a completely random race. There was maybe a little more predictability after all the cars got wiped out, but you had 50% of the field get wiped out anyway. So it was only probably a 10% predictable race tops, I would say. So essentially a completely random race, and that's not good. I'll have to run the numbers. I didn't run the model versus the actual to see what the true result was, but I would bet this was on the essentially completely random race versus what you could predict with pre-race data and insights and knowledge and things like that. So just sucks. It's frustrating that we didn't get to see some more people have a chance at a perfect bracket, because that'd be cool. But I said going in, it was going to be harder to have a perfect NASCAR bracket given the circumstances than a perfect NCAA tournament bracket. I really believe that, because getting out of the first round of the NCAA tournament, willing it down to 32, and even then, these things are much more predictable results. We have a more predictable sport in terms of college basketball. Yes, there's a lot of randomness in college basketball, but not as much as a completely random, super speedway race. So annoying. And I've kind of lost interest in the tournament just because of that. I do think there's still excitement in terms of betting some of these matchups, but I don't give a shit who wins the tournament. I just want my cash out on Ty Gibbs.
And I think another thing that hurts it, at least from like a general viewer standpoint, is a lot of big names are now out of it. Byron's out of it. Blaney's out of it. Larson's out of it. Cindric's out of it. Logano's out of it. Hamlin's out of it. Bell's out of it. Chastain's out of it. Like, this was a devastating round as far as like the big name drivers go. And I know like you and I both like to root for underdogs, but and I'll perfectly root for an underdog to win this thing now, but that's not the average fan, and that's not going to help this in-season challenge do what it was intended to do, which is kind of drive up some other storylines. So I do think, if like a Hocevar or a Keselowski, and obviously Chase Elliott, if they go out and win this thing, it might help. But overall, it was, I think it was a hard first round, not only for people picking, but also just the overall legitimacy of and need of this in-season challenge. So,
yep.
Yeah.
And once again, I know I'm going back to Atlanta, but stop betting favorites in Atlanta. Like, it's so hard, right? People were betting Penske, and it's like, we got the random Atlanta. My top value that I had on any driver was 10%, like 10.2%. And my model actually had Austin Cindric as number one, just barely ahead of Blaney and Logano, who were like high 9% and stuff like that, high 8 and 9%. But they were priced at, plus 850, I think it was for Blaney, 10-1 for Logano and Cindric, which technically is value, but I'm talking like the thinnest of values. And if we get the random side of things, it's not really worth it. Plus model error I could have. So now we have an extra data point that there's now more random Atlanta races than non-random Atlanta races. So it's like, I could definitely see betting Chase Elliott. I think he was at 18-1 at some places, which is honestly, I think a good bet. If you want to bet favorites and then 3 Team Penske drivers are just taking up the favorite part of the favorites, I think a smart bet is that second tier of favorites, the Chase Elliott's, the Brad Keselowski's, or whatever. And those were the guys contending for the win. So let me see what I had for Chase Elliott on his outright odds. I had him at 5.3%. So actually I didn't quite have value on Chase Elliott. Maybe it was 1 divided by 0.053. Yeah, at 18-1, I had thin value on him. I had plus 1785. So again, thin value. But that tier there of the Chase Elliott, the William Byrons, those kinds of drivers had some value on a few of them there at 18 or 20-1 type odds.
But so Chase Elliott wins at Atlanta, gets his first win in 45 races, broke a 44 race winless streak. Noteworthy also after that is he's now second in points ahead of Kyle Larson. It's a Hendrick 1-2-3 right now. Byron, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson 1-2-3. Chase Elliott 37 points behind Byron. Then we got the Toyotas of Hamlin, Bell, Reddick. Reddick has not won this year. Then we got Blaney, Chastain. Buescher moves up to 9th in points. He has not won, but he adds a little bit of cushion above that cut line. As I said, Ryan Preece is now the cut line in 14th. Briscoe, Logano, Bowman moves up a spot. Bubba Wallace falls down a spot, getting ever closer to that cut line when it comes to points. But yeah, so cut line is now Ryan Preece. He has 405 points on the season. Cindric is in with his win. Josh Berry is in with his win. Wait, Preece is out, isn't he? I did my math wrong here. No. There's 2 people outside the top 16. So yeah, Preece is in. There we go. Preece is in. Jones is the first out, right?
Cindric and Berry and SVG all have wins, but Cindric is in that top 16 in points. So yeah, Preece is in.
Preece is in, yep.
So 1, 2, 3. No, Preece is out. This is hard to do. I'm just going to go to NASCAR.com and look at the playoff standings.
Yeah.
I have Wikipedia open instead of let's look at the standings. Playoff.
Yeah, Preece is out.
Yeah, Preece is out because
Preece
he's
is out.
14th in points and 3 people. So the top 13 in points plus the 3 outside that have wins. Yeah.
I swear we know what we're doing and we know what we're talking about here. But yeah, Bubba, last guy in right now, 428 points. Preece is 17 points behind him. And then Eric Jones is 49 points.
49 back.
Yeah. Yeah. So bit of a gap there, but it doesn't take a lot. Bubba historically not very good at road courses, which we have 2 coming up here. Jones really not great at road courses. Preece qualified second at Mexico City, fell back by the end of it. But Allmendinger, very good. He's right there on the bubble at road courses, obviously. Kyle Busch has shown speed at road courses over the last couple seasons. Hocevar is kind of a wrecking ball on road courses, but if he figures it out, he can show speed. Michael McDowell he was top 5, very solid top 5 at Mexico City. Ty Gibbs, we always talk about him. He faded there at Mexico City after showing a little bit of speed early. And then, of course, the very heavy favorite once again this weekend, SVG, who could look to grab his second win of the season. But anything sticking out to you as far as playoff picture goes, and the point standings? You know, a couple weeks ago we were talking about William Byron maybe walking away with this regular season points championship, but it's right there. And to me, like, if Chase Elliott wins this regular season points championship, when do we start talking about him potentially being a champion this year again? You know, because he's sitting there and he's been sitting in that 12 to 14 range last I checked to win the championship, but he's got to win now. If he wins the regular season championship, he's going to have those extra playoff points. Consistency could still get it done despite the win in advance format of this.
So I think Chase Elliott is in the argument for maybe like the 7th best driver. You know, there's Larson, Byron, Hamlin, Bell, Reddick, and Blaney. I'd all put ahead of him. But I think Chase Elliott is in an argument for the 7th best driver. And a lot of it, like you said, is through consistency. No finishes outside top 20.
0 DNFs.
Yep. But that's not really a sustainable thing. If we look at Chase Elliott last year, he had 0 finishes outside the top 20 until the 20th race of the season, which was the Chicago Street Course. Now it's the 19th race of the season. But then he had 1, 2, 3, 4 to end the season. So, you know, I think he is a consistency monster, and a consistency monster could get you to Phoenix. So, you know, maybe being the 7th best driver, I'd say, and having a probably better than average chance for a 7th best driver to get to Phoenix. Then you have to be the best of 4. So you're looking at a 25% chance if you're equal to those other drivers, and he's probably going to be on the weaker end of those drivers, probably, right? Let's just say he's 20% to be tops at Phoenix, hypothetically. And he's maybe 50-50 to get in tops. You know, a lot of weird things can happen. You get random winners and stuff that put you in or put you out. I mean, it's hard to survive each round. You know, he really only should be slightly better than a coin flip to make the final 8. And then worse than a coin flip to make Phoenix, but let's pretend he's just a coin flip to make Phoenix. 0.5 times 0.2, right? I mean, that's a 10% chance. You're looking at 9 to 1 is fair, and I'm being generous. So I don't quite think he's bettable at 12 to 1, maybe 14, but even then I think that's a bit of a stretch. And that's just, you know, back of the napkin math.
Right. One thing Chase does have for him as far as these playoffs go is he's really good at Bristol in the first round. Obviously, road course, Roval in the second round. Martinsville, Hendrick has been absolutely dominant there.
And Talladega, of course.
Yeah, and Talladega. So these tracks do set up well for him, but I do think if he's going to get to the Final Four, it's going to be on consistency, and then, you know, depending on who the rest of the guys are, will determine, you know, what kind of chance he does have. But let me see here. Yeah, so like I said, Byron a couple weeks ago, probably a month ago, we were talking, you know, potentially running away with this thing, but he finished 28th at Michigan. He finished 27th at Pocono and then 37th at Atlanta this past week. So, you know, he hasn't had a top 5 since early June, which would that have been the Nashville race, the Cracker Barrel 400. So yeah, just something to keep an eye on there as far as the regular season point standings go. They are starting to heat up a little bit as we have 8 more races to go before that one's crowned. But the cream definitely rising to the top, you know, as we expected. These big organizations, Hendrick Motorsports especially, 1, 2, 3, and then we got Bowman sitting there in 12th. But by the way, I'm so that should have been my whine about it. People still calling for Alex Bowman to lose his ride. I don't. All it is comparative bias, because you have William Byron, who's one of the best and one of the youngest in the series. You have Chase Elliott, who's Chase Elliott, Mr. Consistency, and then you have Kyle Larson, who's arguably the best driver in the world, probably in the series. You know, like
Remember after Homestead, like Alex Bowman was sitting there, what, second or third in points? Since then, it's been a string of really bad luck, a few maybe mistakes, but I felt most of it has been bad luck. Blown engine, crashes he wasn't a part of that he ended up getting in. He really has had speed pretty much everywhere except, like, I don't know, maybe Nashville or something. I don't even remember. There was like one race I was underwhelmed with his performance and he wasn't very good. But other than that, he's had speed everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you remember, like earlier in the season, like he had one of the best cars at Las Vegas. It was just another one of those races where he had bad luck. But we've gotten so far away from intermediate tracks that we kind of forget about the speed that 48 car has until we get back into him later in the year. And then it's going to be like, oh, yeah, he was really fast in these early in the year. They're probably going to have speed again.
I mean, he's eighth in my season-long flags when you remove road courses and non-drafting ovals. He's eighth in my season-long flags behind the 7 we talked about, Chase Elliott being 7th and then Alex Bowman's 8th.
But here's the thing. Like, you mentioned taking away road courses, but Alex Bowman just finished 4th at Mexico after starting 29th. He's the defending winner of Chicago Street Course.
No, I mean, he's great at road courses for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So this could be a really good stretch here. He's good at Dover. This could be a really good stretch of races here for Alex Bowman. So anything else from these point standings? Keselowski moves up 3 spots with his finish, but again, he's going to have to win if he wants to.
Only other thing is really how it applies to Chicago. With the standings the way they are, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace all need to think about points.
Yep.
Maybe even Tyler Reddick, but definitely the other 3. As well as Preece and possibly Jones. We know Allmendinger's going for the win.
Yeah. So I will note, speaking of, we'll just get right into Chicago here. My rule when it comes to road courses. If Chris Buescher is plus money, I'm betting him. He opened, and I think he still is on Bet365 plus 140 for a top 10. I haven't bet it, and I don't want to because I would say this is his weakest road course, is Chicago Street Course.
It is.
Plus,
it 100%.
Like you said, he is racing for points. So I'm not. Maybe if it gets to the 2 range, I'll consider it. But I'm not early week jumping on Chris Buescher top 10. But as far as Chicago Street Course goes, SVG, the very heavy favorite across pretty much every single book. He's plus 200, as low as plus 200 at some books. Everyone else, if you look at like MGM and some of these other ones, the next guy is often either Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell at plus 750. Then we got the guys like Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott in the 12-1 ranges this week. I'm interested on your take on this because I don't think he should be. Should SVG be that much of a favorite at Chicago Street Course this week?
No.
Yeah.
No. He definitely should be the favorite, but plus 200, plus 190 is a little ridiculous. Look, I bet him at plus 470 at FanDuel for Mexico City, but that's 470. That's way different than plus 200. There's, again, potentially rain in the forecast. There's just the way things shake out at Chicago. It can get a little random. It can get, a driver hits the concrete because this is especially not like any other road course where if you spin off in the dirt, you can just get it refired and NASCAR will wait a whole lap unless you're still stuck. But you hit the wall and you can't go anywhere and your car's toast. Or you get these pileups and they're stuck in the tire barriers, all sorts of stuff. It's just more random than your typical road course simply because of some of the underlying factors here. With weather and just the fact that yellows are more likely to come out at this road course than any other road course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand why he's that heavy of a favorite, but also, so I think a big factor at why SVG was so dominant at Mexico City was because that was the first race there. And he is by far the best road course racer in the series. So he figured out the track quicker than everybody else. This will be the third race at Chicago Street Course, which I think kind of just brings the field up to him a little bit. So, yes, I agree with you. He should be the favorite, but plus 200, there's no way I'm betting plus 200. I would much rather take someone like Christopher Bell, who has had a race-winning car at Chicago the last 2 years, at plus 750. I would love and even like a Tyler Reddick. I understand that team was out to lunch at Mexico City. But getting Tyler Reddick for 12-1 pre-practice and qualifying at a road course, and people aren't jumping all over this. Come on, like what's going on?
What about Ty Gibbs? 12-1.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to back Gibbs. I will say 2 races at Chicago Street Course, he has the best average driver rating.
And he just was the only driver that could hang with SVG at Mexico City. Again, another flat track, flat road course.
12-1 isn't good enough for me to bite on Gibbs.
I disagree.
How the tables have turned. You are a Gibbs guy now, and I'm against it.
I'm not usually a Gibbs guy. I remember I said Gibbs is dead to me like 3 times this year, but this might be the spot. This might be the spot. I want my Gibbs cash out. Remember I said I didn't even trust the fucker. I want my Gibbs cash out. And then I would cash him out and then bet him 12-1 with some of my cash out profit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm interested to see how this weekend goes. Looking, like you said, we've had 2 races. I
drank through my 2 beers, so I gotta
you're onto the wine.
Got to get the Luvabella bourbon barrel aged Cabernet Sauvignon. I have a bourbon barrel aged Merlot too, which I haven't actually done yet. I did the cab earlier on this podcast like a couple weeks ago. I didn't do the Merlot yet, but I don't know. I wanted something different from my usual box wine that I have, which is really good. It's non-Luvabella, but I tried to save the Luvabella to only have on the podcast, but I broke down and had some last night. So we're already at like a third of a bottle left because I had 2 glasses last night of this. So I'm going to have a little bit more since it's the podcast and we're sponsored by Luvabella Winery.
Yep. Make sure you check them out, luvabella.com. But so going back to last year's Chicago Street Course, I don't remember it specifically because I remember I was working that day. I didn't get to watch a lot of it, but Alex Bowman did win it. We also had Joey Hand in that number 60 for RFK finish 4th. We have another quote unquote road course ringer this week in Will Brown in the 13 car for Colleague. Austin Hill is also in the 33 for RCR. Corey Heim is in the 67 for 2311. Catherine Leggs in the 78. We got 41 cars. We're going to get someone that does not qualify for this race. But there are some kind of unknown people in these races that's hard to handicap, particularly that Will Brown. And like I said, we saw Joey Hand last season win a stage and finish 4th in the RFK car. Not sitting here saying that Will Brown's going to win this race, but I think after Hand's performance last year, books don't want to open up their liability on him because I've seen Will Brown at like 18-1 to win this race, which is, surprising to say the least. But last year's race, Alex Bowman in victory lane, Reddick, Gibbs, Hand, McDowell, the top 5. Stenhouse, our boy Todd Gilliland finished 7th. Byron, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney was the top 10. Daniel Hemrick finished 12th in that race. Noah Gragson, who's awful at road courses, finished 14th. One guy I'm also interested to see. We've talked about in these last couple weeks and his struggles. Justin Haley has a pretty good record here, actually. He has a 2nd place finish to his credit and also a 16th place finish. But as far as average driver rating, he is 6th best behind Gibbs, SVG, Reddick, Bell, Larson, and then Haley 6th. Obviously, a big part of that was his second place finish. He led a bunch of laps. He had a really good driver rating in that race. But still a decent effort last year in that 51 for Rick Ware, 16th place finish for Haley. Some underdog potentially to keep an eye on this weekend.
Yeah,
especially the Spire
and
how McDowell's speed at Mexico City in that Spire car.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And, in a completely random race with Justin Haley not beating Ty Gibbs, I was a little disappointed in terms of my bracket because for bracket purposes, picked Justin Haley over Ty Gibbs just because of total randomness and figured everybody would be on Ty Gibbs. And then I actually had Haley upsetting Michael McDowell, who I had upsetting AJ Allmendinger, or I shouldn't say upsetting, but technically he was the favorite over Allmendinger. But so yeah, I agree with you. I think Justin Haley, some great potential here. You mentioned Chris Buescher. This is the worst road course for him. He's matched up against Zane Smith this week, and Chris Buescher has the points race, and Zane Smith doesn't, right? I mean, if you want to talk about betting a matchup, Zane Smith, right there. There you go. That's probably the best matchup to bet, I think, this weekend from the tournament. John Hunter Nemechek, I talked about him. You need to shop around for odds because Chase Elliott's minus 425 at BetMGM and Nemechek's plus 260. I don't think I can quite get there. Like I said, somewhere between 33% and 25% of the time I have Nemechek winning, but that's right in that plus 260 range. So tough to bet. And then Jones versus Stenhouse is an absolute complete toss-up. When we're talking some of these longer shots, if rain's in the forecast, I really don't hate Hosvar plus 155 versus Reddick if Reddick has to protect a little bit in points race, just to, because the cut line could still move up. Let's say Allmendinger wins or Suarez wins or, McDowell wins, somebody like that. So Reddick has to protect a little bit. So there's some angles here where, like I said, I completely agree with you on Justin Haley, but I think there's some angles here where you could find some of these other upsets in matchups from this tournament as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you made any bets this week for Chicago Street Course yet?
I have. I've made one.
Are you at liberty to share it, or is that?
That is going to be on my podcast tonight.
All right.
Only running podcast.
I have made two. So one driver that has had good speed at both road course races this year was in shittier equipment, especially on road courses last year. Chase Briscoe, top 10 finish, plus 200. I had to grab that.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like his when you pull the history, you're going to be like, he's really not that good at road courses. You have to remember he was in Stewart-Haas equipment, and they were awful at road courses. He has had speed in this car this season at road courses. Just finished 7th at Mexico City. He was up there potentially. We were talking about him potentially winning at Coda. Briscoe, that's one of my favorite bets. And then Michael McDowell plus 125 for a top 10 finish. Could not pass that up. McDowell, legitimately top 5 all race at Mexico City, has finished 5th and 7th in the 2 Chicago Street races. I love that bet as well. Michael McDowell, top 10 finish. So I'm interested to see where and when FanDuel drops their top 10 odds. I think there might be some early week value there that I'm going to hit. But again, like I said, I did not think there would ever be a day where I would see Chris Buescher top 10 plus 140 at a road course, and I'm not betting it. But right now, I'm not there.
I 100% agree with you. And I really like that Chase Briscoe 2-1 top 10 you said. I don't know what the number is now. I don't have it up in front of me. It looks like plus 160 is the longest, but at least that's what I see on Action website. We're not pulling on a couple books because of API things. But if there's still a 2-1 out there, I think I would grab that. But yeah, I think, this isn't a race I want to get heavy on.
No.
Potential rain in the forecast, SVG being a heavy favorite. A lot of different scenarios for what teams and drivers could and couldn't do with strategy because of playoff implications. Not really a race I'm investing much in. I think this is going to be maybe my lightest week of the season. By the way, between IndyCar and NASCAR, I'm up 24.5 units over the last 6 weeks. So that's a nice little bounce back when things don't finally go completely terrible with all of my drivers that I bet being fast as shit and then something happening to them, blowing a tire while about to pass for the lead, 50-1 Brad Keselowski, like that kind of shit. So I feel like I'm really in the zone with NASCAR. I think I've had one negative week since Memorial Day weekend. I think I've had one negative NASCAR week, and that was minus 2.25 units. Everything else has been positive, I believe. There may have been a second week that was minus like half a unit, but I think it was plus half a unit. I don't remember off the top of my head. But either 4 of the last 6 or 5 of the last 6 NASCAR weeks have been positive. IndyCar has been fucking destroying. So I feel like, got the mojo back, and also haven't had the run of bad luck that I have had for a year and a half.
That was also that actually should have been my whine about it, because I feel like over the past probably 6 weeks, I have just I've hovered at up a little bit, down a little bit, up. I started off the season so hot, and now I just can't. I don't know what's going on with me. I feel really good about my bets every week. Don't get me wrong, but I need to reevaluate how I'm betting or do something. Or maybe I'm just in that summer lull. I feel like I constantly have a summer lull, or not constantly, but every year I kind of go through a summer lull. Maybe I'm in that right now, But That being said, I do really like Briscoe top 10 and McDowell top 10. I do like my early week bets this week. Yep. Obviously, I bet them.
Yeah, I like my bets because I bet them.
Yeah.
I've never made a bet that I didn't like. I've made bets that I've regretted after the fact, thinking on it or hindsight or just missed something in the analysis. But every bet I've ever made, I should say every official bet I've ever made, I've liked. I've made some ridiculous manufacturer parlays simply to keep accounts soft and things like that. But I don't track those because I don't want people tailing those.
Right.
But every official bet I've ever made, I've at the time liked. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bet it.
Mm-hmm. Any other non-typical road course guys that you have your eye on this week? This is also a relatively short race, 75 laps. That's it. So I know we'll get into DraftKings later, but you have to take that into perspective this weekend with the stage break cautions and any other potential cautions. This is going to be so much about finishing position and potentially place differential when it comes to DFS this week that they got SVG priced at 12,000. I don't see a world where you can get where he's going to be in the optimal lineup unless he qualifies 30th, Yeah,
no, I completely agree. 75 laps is so few. When you think about it, you got to think at most 75% of the laps translate to dominator points. So 0.75 times 75, right? We're looking at 50 dominator points max in this race. Unless we get crazy overtime or something. So another place differential week, another place differential finishing position combination week for DraftKings points. Finishing position, of course, is still going to be very important, but DraftKings this week is going to be really interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting how we build our way too early lineups. Way too early lineups.
Absolutely. One guy I want to keep an eye on this week. I want to get a good number for his top 10, maybe if one drops. But Todd Gilliland, our boy, he finished 7th here last year after starting 26th. Showed a ton of speed at Mexico City. Didn't quite show it during the race. I think he got damaged though, didn't he? He got squeezed into the wall. Yeah. Had a much better car than his 22nd place finish showed there, but. Gilly could potentially be a sleeper this week. But really, like you said, this could end up being a random road course race. We could see there's an upside factor for pretty much everybody. There's only 3 guys that have finished top 10 in both Chicago street course races. Ty Gibbs, Michael McDowell, and Kyle Busch. There was only 6 guys that have finished top 20 in both Chicago street course races. Those 3 plus Justin Haley, William Byron, and Austin Cindric. Oh, I'm missing a couple here. And Todd Gilliland and Chris Buescher.
Yep.
Oops. But it just goes to show, this is third race at Chicago street course, completely different type of road course than quote unquote kind of the normal. What track would you compare the best? Like, how relevant is Mexico City that we were just at a month ago?
Not super similar, simply because there is, but there wasn't track limits at Mexico City. But there's track limits here. The track limits is the wall.
Yeah.
So, you have to be more precise. It favors road course experts more here than other road courses where you can, kind of get away with things a little bit more. So it's one of those things where, I think this is definitely a road course heavy. Like you mentioned Joey Hand last year, where he finished in top 5. That's because it favors a driver like Joey Hand. It favors drivers that are road course aces. And I was thinking about it earlier when you mentioned the open cars. We've got 5 open cars this weekend. It would be fun to have odds on which car does not qualify, because Catherine Legg will be the heavy favorite, but I don't think it's much of a foregone conclusion as it should be.
I think I was going to say the 66.
Josh Bilicki's a good road course racer, though.
That car is so slow, though.
Yeah, but he's good, right? So, but that's my point. Is I think Catherine Legg would be the heavy favorite to not qualify, but I would put the 66, in the odds market as the value.
Someone please get a hold of a sports book and let's get some odds for the car that does not qualify for this race, please. So,
yeah,
I don't know if you heard this. And maybe I heard it wrong. I heard it on Sirius XM the other day. And it said due to the heat wave in Chicago that the streets in Chicago were like buckling and that it could affect the NASCAR race. But I can't find anything about this online. So I probably misheard this. And it could have just been,
I have no idea.
DJ
I didn't see anything about that.
To keep you listening, but
looking up Chicago pass.
I'm seeing pavement buckles under extreme heat, prompting early NASCAR street closures. So yeah, they had to just repair a couple streets because of the heat.
Yeah. That'll make things interesting. Here's the other thing. So the start time is 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 1 o'clock local.
Yep.
And the current forecast is the rain to pick up towards the end of the race. So we might start with a dry and end in the wet. And it could even be rain shortened if it's heavy enough to cause a red flag, which really would not favor dominators in DFS. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And could really throw the order for a loop rather than ending in the dry where things like we saw at Mexico City, right? We had some rain in Mexico City and then things kind of sorted themselves out and it was pretty much a dry race. This is like the opposite where the chaos could come at the end, which makes betting SVG even harder.
Right. What's the percentage of rain predicted for Chicago on Sunday?
It starts out around 20%. And ends at around, let's say it's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour race, would end around 40 to 50%. Looks like.
Have we had a dry Chicago street course race?
We have not.
Man, just like one time, I'd like it. But yeah, to your point, chaos is we're probably going to get chaos again. We
could, yeah, or the rain misses the track or misses downtown, or a 50% chance just means 50% of the coverage area has a chance of having rain. So it could still not rain. Tough to say.
Well, hopefully, if it does rain, we don't see any teams, Busher and Cindric, that try to get cute and not put on rain tires. All right, you got anything else for Chicago Street Course before we get to our picks?
No. I'm honestly, I'm largely avoiding, like I said, betting this race. I'm a little more interested in DFS this week than I think I would normally be, just because I think there's
same way.
Yeah, I think there's some angles here and stuff. But like you, like if I'm betting this race, I'm not betting SVG. I think I'm betting like Bell, Gibbs, and Reddick and just hoping one of them wins or something. But I haven't done that yet. I'm just saying if I do, that's where my current line of thinking is.
Yeah, I can get behind betting Bell. I don't know. It just seems like a Bell week. But then again, my picks have been so freaking awful as of late as far as picks to win. I'm sure whoever I pick this week is not going to finish well. So last week, picks to win, you had Reddick, solid top 5 finish there, finishing 4th. I had my boy Denny Hamlin, 31st place finish. That gives me 4 straight picks to win that finished 27th or worse. I'm down bad. This is
down bad.
This is getting ridiculous. My average finish this year when it comes to my picks is 16.61. Yours is 11.83. 19th race of the season, Chicago Street Course. Nick, who you got to win?
Christopher Bell. And not because I think he's going to win, but I think things play towards his favor. He was really good at Mexico City in both the wet and the dry. He's been great at Chicago. He was great at Chicago in the wet. Christopher Bell, just because I think he's a little safer in terms of strategy as well. I could see him grabbing stage points, but SVG knows he can win this. So he could grab stage points too, but the points don't matter to SVG. He's not going to advance in the standings. So he's going to go with the optimal strategy, I think. Whereas Christopher Bell, like the point standings matter to Christopher Bell. So I think he could also grab stage points, which I think is very important for a driver that's that fast.
You got to remember back to Mexico City. He started 31st in that race.
Yep.
So he could have, not to say he had a better car than SVG. I think SVG had the field absolutely covered in that race. But Bell, if he wouldn't have had to work through traffic and potentially get a little bit of damage here and there, he could have had more to say to SVG. But I agree with you. I'm all on board. I think betting Bell even at plus 750 right now, I wouldn't argue against anybody doing that. I think that's solid. I know my numbers have him second behind SVG this week. So
yep, same.
My pick to win and my jinx. Let's see if I can get a 5 weeks. You know what? Give me SVG.
Let's go.
Taking the heavy favorite here. Let's see if I can.
Bro, dude. I shit you not. I was just logging into DraftKings to do our thing, our DraftKings way too early picks. And so they have to send me the code to 2-factor authentication.
2088.
8819 Chase Briscoe.
There we go.
There's no 30, but still. How funny is that?
Awesome. All right. 36 for 36. I had Cody Ware last weekend. Got a solid 24 points out of him. You got a decent amount out of Cole Custer, 18 points out of him.
I was looking at this. When we look at Cole Custer and Cody Ware, I have 30 points and you have 25 from them. Also, something's up with yours because you have Ryan Preece twice. You have Ryan Blaney twice. And you have Tyler Reddick twice.
Oh, yeah, I got to fix that, don't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't officially know our standings yet.
Well, the points are right, just the numbers are wrong.
Gotcha.
So Bristol, we both had Gibbs. Bowman.
Nashville, I don't think you took Blaney.
Michigan, I did not have Priest. I had Busher.
There you go.
Which, okay, so these are,
No,
this is wrong here.
I had Busher at Michigan. I don't think you had Busher. I think you had Keselowski at Michigan.
Oh, shit, you're right. Yep. I'm looking at the wrong, I'm messing this all up. I had the 6 there, and we both had Priest at Martinsville.
And then
Bristol, we both had Gibbs.
Yeah,
so,
and then Blaney, you have twice, which I don't think you had him at Nashville.
I had Chastain.
Yeah,
I had Chastain.
Yep,
there we go.
It's like something's up there.
Yep, there we go. Good catch.
That changes a lot, actually. You have 36 points more than me, but 29 on plus minus, right? So like above or below a driver's average this season. Although I haven't updated the owner points, so I need to update.
I did.
Points. Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
I did, yep.
Cool. Okay, so, yeah, owner points are fixed, and oh, nice. I see what you did there. Okay, cool. Good. So you lead 28.6, 28 and a half, let's say, points on plus minus, meaning a driver's result above or below their average. But you're 60 points above over 18 races, a driver's average, and I'm still 31.7 above. So we're picking positive results, It's just you've picked a little bit more positive than me so far, halfway through the season. With that said, I'm taking the number 88.
Good call. I'm gonna have to go back and double check all this to make sure it's right, but I'm pretty sure it's right. Damn it, I was gonna go SVG too.
You still can.
I know.
It would only be our second race all season where we doubled up. Or third race all season where we doubled up. No, fourth. We both had the 45 at Mexico.
Yep.
So it'll be our fourth. Nothing wrong with doubling up.
Part of me wants to go, where am I going to use Justin Haley at?
Oh, I mean, obviously at a super speedway, but yeah, this is a spot to use him too.
I'm looking at the guy. Like I still have Gilly. I still have Herbst.
I was thinking about the 20, right? Christopher Bell, but you got to earmark him for New Hampshire.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I'm using him at Phoenix or New Hampshire or somewhere.
Yeah, or Phoenix for sure.
I think I might go Justin Haley and hate myself for it. Maybe Gilly? Do I go Gilly?
John Hunter Nemechek you've already used? Yeah, you have.
Yeah, I've already used John Hunter Nemechek. Or do I go SVG?
The reason I liked the 20, Christopher Bell, is because of the stage points that I just talked about. Like, SVG doesn't care about stage points. He needs to flip stages. Unless he can get a guaranteed playoff point. But even then, 5 points for the win is more valuable than 1 playoff point. So that's kind of why I like Christopher Bell, because he's probably going to points race at least one of the stages. And so that was part of my thinking. Whereas Haley's on the optimal strategy. The only thing that matters is his finish. Same with Zane or Gilly or John Hunter Nemechek, those kinds of drivers.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think this is just SVG's best track, period.
Yeah, I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going SVG. Not going to overthink it.
I love it.
All right, let me pull up DraftKings here quick. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting early week. So last week, you got back in the win column. You now lead 9 wins to 8. When it comes to these 2 early DraftKings picks, you ended up with 197.45. That lineup cashed. I ended up with 156.6. And share my screen here. There we go. Who you got this week? SVG at 12,000.
Just because of the bullshit around it, I don't think I can.
That's 24% of the salary.
Yeah. In a race where dominator points are minimized. And
you know what's
and he's not going to be leading every lap if he's flipping stages and stuff.
You know what could be crazy though is it could end up being he could be a tournament play based on his ownership being low if qualifying gets wonky and there's a bunch of place differential plays back there. I don't know.
The thing is, qualifying's on Saturday, right?
Yes, that's going to be
there's
dry.
There's no rain in the forecast.
No, I'm saying rain on Sunday.
Right, but yeah, qualifying gets wonky.
Which it could. We've seen it happen before.
Yeah, I just think SVG is too good to qualify anything outside of like the top 3 or 5.
Yeah, he's even money to win the poll this week.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So I'm going Christopher Bell.
I have a feeling we might end up similar.
Ty Gibbs.
We're going to end up similar.
Will Brown.
Ooh. Where's he at?
73.
Okay.
Justin Haley.
Okay.
I debated this next one. I think I'm going to go Cole Custer.
Very strong race at Mexico.
Won the inaugural Xfinity race here. So then it's like Byron Reddick, Elliott, Allmendinger, Bowman. I could pick any of those drivers, right? Who the fuck do I pick? Who the fuck do I pick? That's the real question. I honestly don't know. I know in the closing stages last year, Reddick was about to overtake Bowman. There was some rain in the forecast, and those dry and wet tires also kind of like this. We're setting up kind of like last year, so I think I'm gonna go Reddick.
Reddick,
yeah.
Bell, Reddick, Gibbs, Will Brown, Justin Haley, Cole Custer.
That's my lineup.
Locking it in?
Yep. Let's do it. I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great about this week at all. I will feel great about it post-practice and qualifying.
Right. So yeah, I think we have 3 of the same.
I assumed as
much. I also went Bell, Gibbs, and Haley.
Yep.
Bell, Gibbs, and Haley. Shit.
There he is.
I'm going Michael McDowell. Last year's winner, Alex Bowman. And our boy, Todd Gilliland.
Gilligan.
Yep. So that's my lineup. Bell, Gibbs, McDowell, Bowman, Haley, Gilly for
Like it.
the way too early DraftKings lineups.
I like it. What's our standings, by the way, and what happened last week? You may have said it and I blanked.
Oh, you got the win. You gained a little over 40 points on me. So standings now, you're at 35.92.1, and I'm at 34.34.05. So
Yeah.
158.05 difference so far. Win totals, you're at 9, I'm at 8.
So over 18 races, I'm averaging 8.78 points more than you per race. But like you said, 9 versus 8 on the win column.
Mm-hmm.
We've been pretty equal.
I need to start tracking which ones are cashing, which lineups are cashing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I have to go back and look at those. I know, like at Pocono, we both did. At Atlanta, yours did. I'll have to go back on the other ones. And then we had that. What was it? That Darlington race where you had negative 0.15 and I had 45. Absolute shit show.
That's the best one.
God. All right. You got anything else for Chicago Street Course?
No, sir, I do not. I think we're good.
Yep. All right. Well, enjoy this weekend's race. Hopefully we get a good one at Chicago Street Course before going to Sonoma, another road course race next season or next weekend. Jesus. But good luck, everybody, with your bets, DFS. Otherwise, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the 4th of July. Stay safe. Don't blow your hand off. And good luck. See you guys.
See y'all. Good luck.